For our group assignment, we have chosen to cover water in Australian deserts. Deserts are defined as an extremely dry area of land with little to no vegetation and are found on every continent on the planet. They are considered one of the Earth's major types of ecosystem and are crucial for certain types of flora and fauna. Dry land is only officially considered a desert if it receives less than 25 centimeters of rain per year. Formation of deserts can be attributed to three main causes: mountain range geography, air pressure, and position relative to the equator. Mountains act as a barrier against humid air currents coming from oceans. Moisture-carrying clouds are stopped by the raised terrain, which decreases the amount of rainfall on the land behind them. Air pressure is another primary factor in desert formation. Dry, low-pressure air has little moisture content and remains near the ground, where it's easily heated by the sun. Because of this, heat is transferred directly to the ground, creating higher ground temperatures. Australia's deserts are a combination of these factors, the processes being set in motion approximately 180 million years ago. When the continents began to split apart from Gondwana, Australia was a vastly different landscape. It migrated north toward the equator and currently rests at an approximate 30 degrees south of it. Due to its newfound position relative to the equator, it was now subject to weather phenomena leading to desert formation. Much of the now arid, inhospitable land was once covered in inland lakes, and for a time entirely covered by sea. An area roughly one-third of the continent, ranging from South Australia to near Canberra and stretching up to the northeastern edge of Queensland, was sunken into a depocentre. Due to tectonic movements causing fluctuating sea levels, a large portion of the continent was inundated by water. During its time underwater, impermeable sediment, like clay, began to build up within the sandstone beds as sediment was carried through the tides. As the basin filled with sediment, and as the sea levels became steady, the continent experienced a tectonic shift, tilting the land slightly north, and water began to drain off the southern end of the continent. This left behind a mottled, part sandstone, part claystone base. This was the formation of the Great Artesian and Great Murray basins. Much of the current available inland water is from these vast subterranean systems of groundwater, supporting local flora and fauna as well as early inhabitants. To early settlers, boring holes into the basin was crucial for continued survival on the continent, because of the rarity of streams and lakes. However, the bore systems throughout the basin ultimately reduced the overall pressure within the underground systems, known as aquifers. Water enters and leaves the groundwater system by the process of discharge and recharge. Recharge occurs when surface water from precipitation, rivers, or lakes percolates downwards through the microscopic, porous holes in the soil and rock profile. Recharge is measured as the amount of water which fills an aquifer over a given period of time, and is usually measured in millimeters per year. Discharge is the process of groundwater outflowing from underground aquifers. The water can then diffuse across the landscape, supporting regional vegetation, or it can collect at point source areas, such as natural springs. In some cases, groundwater also discharges into surface water bodies, such as rivers and lakes. Nowadays, Australia has 10 named deserts, which make up 18% of the Australian mainland and are distributed throughout the Western Plateau and interior lowlands. Currently, only 3% of the Australian population live on the driest 70% of the continent. The rest of the population is concentrated along the coasts. 35% of Australia receives so little rain that it can be classified as a desert. This small amount of rainwater gets stored as either groundwater or surface water. The most iconic Australian example of desert surface water is Lake Eyre. It's located 647 kilometres northeast of Adelaide, in the heart of the Simpson Desert. It is listed as a nationally important wetland by the South Australian Government and the Directory of Important Wetlands. It was formed 20 to 30 million years ago when the sea receded, leaving only several large rivers that are thought to have flowed to the southern coast. 1 million years ago, the land to the south of the Salt Lakes was tilted up. This faulting blocked the flow of rivers to the coast, ultimately resulting in a huge lake. The lake is now home to several species, including fish and birds. 13 breeding species have been recorded here with numbers of up to 40,000 pelicans and 10,000 whistling ducks that live along the Diamantina River that's a tributary to the lake. Many, if not all of these species, would struggle if not for this basin. Lake Eyre experiences a small 1.5 meter flood every 3 years and a large 4 meter flood every 10 years, and fills only an average of 4 times a century. Climate change is expected to have significant impacts on Australia's deserts. A study from the University of New South Wales shows that global warming will increase desertification in southern Australia. As the tropical belt expands, Australia is expected to see higher temperatures and more intense droughts. The reduction of available water in Australian deserts will likely have catastrophic consequences for the residing flora and fauna. Potential developments in the well-being of the desert include a proposed canal that would be established to transport water from the Kimberley Continental Plateau to Perth. It has also been suggested that deserts could be utilised for crop growth. Australian deserts have been formed through many geological processes over millions of years. The minimal amount of water that gets stored in our deserts supports thousands of ecological communities, and is the lifeblood that allows human culture and industry to thrive in one of the harshest regions on Earth. If we as a society value the deserts of Australia, it is the responsibility of individuals, organisations and governments to work together to ensure that Australian deserts remain in good health for generations to come.